pleasure for us to have you today for this interview on behalf of CAMFOMEDICS. By the way, you are one of the founding fathers of CAMFOMEDICS. Can you briefly recall the creation of this organization?
Thank you very much, Didier. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to be sitting here in the MIDEC office here in Yaoundé. And I also consider myself truly privileged that CAMFOMEDICS would invite me or would want me, to share my life's experience. CAMFOMEDICS, the idea to create CAMFOMEDICS was actually born in Lagos at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport. That was in September 1993. I was on my way back from Cameroon in transit, and it was my first time visiting Cameroon since I went to Germany in 1990 to study. And at the airport, I was just reflecting on what I had seen about the healthcare situation. I was actually very depressed. And then I saw another young man who was strolling aimlessly, and he also looked, after 3 years of medical school, 2 years of medical school, you can tell somebody who doesn't, who is a bit depressed. So I went to him, and it turned out that he was a Cameroonian. He was a dental student. He too was returning from Cameroon. And his observations were similar to mine. That was Pierre Satak. And so we started chatting. I introduced myself, and our observations were the same. And so we both decided that, it was very important that we go back to Germany, bring together our friends, the diaspora, and to start reflecting on what we could do, to improve on the healthcare situation in Cameroon. So actually, CAMFOMEDICS, the idea was actually born in Nigeria.
Well, that's a very interesting thing to know. We all believe that CAMFOMEDICS was born in Germany, although it is based there. So it's very interesting for many young people, the next generation of medical doctors in Germany and medical students, to know that this idea was not only born in Nigeria but at the airport. So it's really interesting to know that. You finished your medical studies in Germany in 1998. That's a long time. I think some of us were still going to Germany to start our own studies. What have you been doing since 1998 when you finished your studies in Germany? We would be interested to know that.
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting question, and I wish you hadn't asked it, because I don't know how much time you have. But when I finished my medical school, in Göttingen, I did some training, the Ärzte program from Deutsche Stiftung für internationale Entwicklung. They had some courses, so I took a diploma course in community health and tropical medicine, a 3-month course that was in Berlin. And then I had a short exposure as an intern with what was then called GTZ, Gesellschaft für technische Zusammenarbeit, at the headquarters in Eschborn, in the health department, with Dr. Rolf Korte, who was the director at that time. And whilst there, I had applied to World Health Organization, for an internship, because yes, I wanted to return to Cameroon, but I also wanted to have an idea of how things happen at that high level, the United Nations, WHO, and so on. So when I go back to Cameroon and I have to deal with these people, I know what is happening in their kitchen. Okay. So that's it. So from GTZ, I went to WHO in Geneva. So GTZ was 2 months, April to June, and then July to September I was supposed to be WHO. 2 months internship. In the meantime, I had applied to go for specialization in ophthalmology in Nairobi. That was in 1999. So instead of 2 months, I spent 4 months in WHO, because they thought that I was doing a good job, and they changed my internship profile or status to that of a short-term consultant. Oh, okay. So I stayed there for 5 months and then went to Nairobi, Kenya, where I trained as an ophthalmologist. So that was 3 years from 99 to 2002. So I did my exams, passed with distinction as an ophthalmologist, and then I decided to return to Cameroon.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, to see that after your studies, you went in to kind of round up your profile, to know what's happening out there in the domain of public health or in the domain of policies and so on, and then we're ready to go to an African country to still continue to round up your profile, and then eventually you decided to return home. But I have the impression it was a very short, a very brief return. Can you tell us what happened back then when you went back home and then eventually interrupted it? That would be maybe interesting for those who are going to be viewing us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a very interesting question. When I decided to go to specialize in Kenya, I considered it a first step to going back home, because I felt that the healthcare situation would be similar to what's in Cameroon. So I would have spent 3 years in a country similar to Cameroon, and that would have facilitated my reintegration, as we like to say, in Cameroon. So I came back to Cameroon. I finished, I had my final exams in August. In September I was in Cameroon, but exactly 30 days later I was on the plane back, well, not back, but going towards Europe, to Switzerland, to WHO.
Okay.
And the reason is very simple too. The first one was that when I got back to Cameroon, I had the feeling that the system wasn't ready for me.
Okay.
It wasn't ready for me, or perhaps I wasn't well prepared. I think it's perhaps better to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, I had a better offer elsewhere. So I had the feeling I was coming to Cameroon and the country wasn't ready for me. But then, 2 months to my final exams in Nairobi, my former supervisor at WHO calls me to tell me, "Henry, we've got a job for you."
Oh,
and I turned it down. I turned down the offer. I said, "No, well, thank you very much, madam, but I'm preparing for my exams now and I want to go to Cameroon." And she insisted. She even invited me to a meeting in Tanzania so that we could talk. So imagine when you come back to Cameroon and you have the feeling that, well, it's a bit hostile, it's not, very conducive, and then you have an easy way out. So I just packed my bags and left. Yeah, so that was in October 2002. But it was meant to be just for about 6 months. However, I stayed out for much longer.
Okay, that's. Now, Henry, so actually you got a better offer, let us put it that way, and then you have the impression that you were not maybe well prepared, you were still young also, and or that the system back home maybe still had some homework to do to be able to receive experts like you. So you decided to go, as maybe many people in your condition would have done. But the question is now, why do you want to give it a second try? Why do you decide to come again and try another experience? That would be something that we would want to know a bit more about.
You really want to, you are very, very curious. You have a lot of probing questions.
Yes.
Well, I had always wanted to return to Cameroon. And so the fact that I had this, small obstacle on the way wasn't really a deterrent. And I actually went out, like they say in French, rentrer pour mieux,
Reculer pour mieux sauter.
reculer pour mieux sauter. Voilà, that was it, basically. So my plans changed, because when I came the first time, the idea was, okay, to perhaps join one of the private mission hospitals, work for a while, and things like that. But then, going back, I said to myself, okay, good, I'll go, work, gather a lot of experience, save some money, and come back and open my private clinic and be happy. So that was it.
Okay.
So I didn't give up, but it's just perhaps the strategy changed. Rather than being an employee, to come back and create, be like an entrepreneur, to be an ophthalmologist who's going to create something in Cameroon. That was it. Thank you.
Those people, the good ones who wanted to do something for your country, for Africa, came together to put in place this hospital. And of course, you see me smiling because I'm putting on glasses, and one of my dreams is to put them off, not only in the night when I'm sleeping, but yeah, to put them off like you. So when I see a center like this one coming, not only to do the operations and all the rest, but also to train future generation of medical doctors, of ophthalmologists, I feel very happy. And of course, this brings us to one of the most important things that you need. And you mentioned it a bit, but I would like us to go a bit through it. You're not going to do this job alone. You need the technicians, those are the ophthalmologists, and then you need also the other support staff that has to keep the hospital, the institute running in a day-to-day basis. So how is that challenge? How do you manage? Because you will not start recruiting on the day or the day after inauguration. I think you're parallelly already looking around to see which are the people that can help you in pursuing this vision, which, as I said already, seems to be a very, very good one. And yeah, how are you going about it, and what are the challenges? Thank you.
Concrete, and state-of-the-art equipment. And I can say it, we have, the best equipment you can find anywhere in the world, in the hospital here in Yaoundé. I can tell you that. And when the hospital opens, I believe, and when the hospital opens, you're welcome to come and, see it for yourself. But the equipment and the concrete alone don't make a hospital. You need people, and you need good people. What I've learned is that there are three things that you have to take into account when you want to recruit somebody to work. You have, what does that person know? Knowledge. What does the person know? That is bookwork. The second one is skills. What can that person do? And the third is the attitude. Who is that person? Now, you'll agree with me that of these three, there are two that you can change, that I can change. But there is one that I cannot change, nobody can change. So, you can change the knowledge by training the person. You can improve on the skills through training, but you can't change the attitude. And so, when we are selecting, we would want to have somebody, ideally, who has all three. But we have decided to focus on the third one, the attitude. That's what we look out for first. Is this somebody who's hardworking? Is this somebody who's willing to learn? Is this somebody who shares the vision? Is this somebody who is teachable? Is this somebody who can work in a team? That's that. So those are our, so that's the foundation. Then in terms of looking for people, the recruitment actually started in 2010.
Okay.
And I was the first person to have been recruited, to be recruited. It's a long story. I was going for a meeting in Berlin, the World Ophthalmology Congress, and I got an email from Dr. Akef Magrabi. And he says, Henry, will you be attending the World Ophthalmology Congress? I said, yes, I will. He said, okay, I want to see you. I didn't even know why. So he directed, I'd heard the name, but I didn't really know much about him. Right person. I think you are the person who is going to direct this project. I think you are the right person. And so that's how it started. So I was the first person. And then progressively, other people joined the team. Okay. So we look at these three and we try to see, does the person have the right attitude? Does he share the vision? Can he work in a team? And so on and so forth. Is he teachable? and then build on that. Then we have advertised in papers.
Okay.
We advertised in papers. The first time was in May 2014, and then recently in January 2016. When we advertised in January, we received more than 1,200 applications.
No.
Oh yes. Yeah, my mailbox was just, because we requested people to apply online, to send emails and things like that. More than 1,200 applications.
From all over the world.
Most of them, I would say about 90% from Cameroon, but there are also people who apply from outside the country. So that's that. So we look at that, but then also we also do active headhunting, as in my case. Somehow I was working in Madagascar, and somebody knew about me that there was this Cameroonian working in Madagascar. And so we also do active headhunting. We ask people, come and ask Didier, do you know somebody who's a good nurse? And we explain to you what we are looking for in that person. We've gone to trainers, to teachers at the Faculty of Medicine to try to find out which ophthalmologists would you recommend among your residents. Nurses the same. So there are a lot of approaches to that. Presently, we have a workforce of 16 out of more than 2,000 people who have applied for jobs. And we're still looking. Because when we start, we'll start with 16, or about 20, because recruitments are ongoing. By the end of the year, we are planning to hit about 65. So in a nutshell, well, not in a nutshell, it was quite long. Short question, but a long explanation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's how we go about it.
That's interesting.